Very good morning, friends. So I hope you're all doing safe as well as healthy. Well, I have been discussing the five-step model on Index 12 with you, and we have covered so far a total of 4 steps. Finally, we're coming to the step number 5. And just to recall the 5 steps in terms of Index 12, we started off the journey in terms of step number 1, getting a carrying amount of the asset and liability. Step number 2, calculating a tax base of the asset and liability. Step number 3, comparing the two and getting a taxable or deductible temporary difference. Step number 4, multiplying the figure in step number 3 into a substantially enacted tax rate. And then finally, in terms of step number 5, we need to consider that where do we record the deferred tax. Now, as we know, in terms of Schedule 3, there are a total of 4 places where the income and expense gets recorded. So I think let's talk about this in a little more detail, that where are we going to record the deferred tax. Let's find this out in this video. May 22 के रिजल्ट्स आ चुके हैं और नवंबर 22 के एग्ज़ाम्स आने वाले हैं और नवंबर 22 की एग्जामिनेशंस के लिए यदि आप प्लान कर रहे हैं फास्ट ट्रैक कोर्सेज के लिए तो अनअकैडमी पर आप अपने पेस पर ये फास्ट ट्रैक कोर्सेज अटेंड कर सकते हैं। अनअकैडमी स्टूडियोज़ यानी कि आप इस कंटेंट को अपने पेस पर देख सकते हैं। गूगल ड्राइव के द्वारा आपको ये लिंक्स शेयर किए जाएंगे जिसके अंदर आप स्टूडियो कंटेंट रिकॉर्ड किया गया है और इन वीडियोस को डाउनलोड करके अनलिमिटेड व्यूज़ इसके अंदर देख सकते हैं। इसके लिए आप अनअकैडमी की आइकॉनिक सब्सक्रिप्शन ले सकते हैं और उसके बेसिस पर आप ये अनअकैडमी स्टूडियोज़ की जो HD क्वालिटी के अंदर रिकॉर्ड की गई हैं उन वीडियोस को आप देख सकते हैं। अगर हम बात करें तो इसके अंदर आप देखेंगे कि जो ग्रुप 1 है उसके अंदर अलग अलग एजुकेटर्स ने इसके अंदर अलग अलग आवर्स स्पेंड किए हैं। जैसे मैं अपनी बात करूं तो 80 आवर्स के अंदर मैंने फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग कवर की है 40 सेशंस में। ऐसी अगर हम बात करें लॉ की तो अमित पोपली सर ने अराउंड 160 आवर्स प्लस लिए हैं। SFM में राहुल मलकान सर ने अराउंड 80 प्लस आवर्स लिए हैं और ऐसी खुशबू सांघवी मैम के अराउंड 81 आवर्स हैं। तो 280 लेक्चर्स और उसके अंदर 366 आवर्स के आसपास। ग्रुप 2 में अगर आप देखें तो सचिन गुप्ता सर ने इसमें 67 आवर्स लिए हैं और डायरेक्ट टैक्स में दुर्गेश सिंह सर ने 23 आवर्स और महेश गौड़ सर ने IDT के अंदर 73 आवर्स लिए हैं। तकरीबन 160 आवर्स 161 लेक्चर्स और 209 घंटे हैं। इसके लिए आप आइकॉनिक सब्सक्रिप्शन अवेल कर सकते हैं। आपने इसके अंदर अपने बैचेस में आइकॉनिक सेलेक्ट करके जो आपको सूट करता हो 36 मंथ्स या फिर 24 मंथ्स या 12 मंथ्स प्लान आप सब्सक्राइब कर सकते हैं। इसके लिए मेरा कोड इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं CAKB10। डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में आपको इसके लिंक्स मिलेंगे और वैसे आपको बता दें कि आइकॉनिक फीचर्स के अंदर आपको वो सभी बेनिफिट्स मिलेंगे जो प्लस क्लास के बेनिफिट्स में मिलते हैं, लेकिन उसके अलावा बहुत सारे एडिशन फीचर्स हैं जैसे कि आप लाइव इंटरैक्टिव क्लासेस अटेंड कर पाएंगे। आपको इसके अंदर स्ट्रक्चर्ड कोर्सेज और PDFs मिलेंगे। ओपन हाउस डिस्कशंस होती हैं। अनअकैडमी कम्युनिटी के साथ आप अलग से जुड़ते हैं। रिकॉर्डेड लेक्चर्स के अनलिमिटेड एक्सेस मिलते हैं। आपके डेली डाउट सॉल्विंग सेशंस होते हैं। प्रिंटेड स्टडी मटेरियल यानी हार्ड बुक्स आपको मिलती हैं। 1:1 लाइव मेंटरशिप मिलती है। ये सभी बेनिफिट्स आपको मिलेंगे आइकॉनिक मेंबरशिप के अंदर। तो भाई किस बात का इंतजार कर रहे हैं, आइए लेट्स क्रैक इट। I made a very simple little chart, which summarizes, I would not say an exhaustive list of examples, but an illustrative list of examples where you will see that, when you record income and expense, I would say there are basically 3 places where incomes and expense are recorded in the Schedule 3. One is you record the income and expense in the calculation of the profit or loss. And one is that it is recorded in the other comprehensive income section. And the other, it is recorded directly in terms of SOCI, what we call SOCE, or sometimes you call it as SOCIE. Basically, the statement of changes in equity. Now, let me, I think, take one example each. When a deferred tax would enter the profit and loss section, when it would enter the other comprehensive income section, when it would enter directly in terms of SOKI. And of course, if it relates to business combination, that is Ind AS 103, then it enters neither of the three areas, but it directly impacts the acquisition accounting entry itself. Now, imagine the first example. Let's say you're looking at a PPE and there is a carrying amount of the asset and there is a tax base of the asset. Now, the difference in the carrying amount and tax base is purely due to depreciation. That means we've taken a different depreciation rate in the accounting perspective, and we've taken a different depreciation rate from a tax perspective. So the difference in the carrying amount and the tax base is purely attributed to depreciation difference. In those cases, any deferred tax consequences, DDA, DDL, is going to be taken in the profit and loss section itself. Now, let's take another example. Let's say same case, a PPE, but there is a difference in the carrying amount and the tax base of the asset, and this difference is attributed, let's say, due to revaluation. So let's say as per Ind AS 16, you've done a revaluation of the asset, but the income tax would not consider any revaluations. So there will be a difference in the carrying amount and the tax base, resulting in a deferred tax asset or liability. Now, this revaluation surplus is taken in the other comprehensive income. So any associated deferred tax implications is also going to be recorded in terms of the other comprehensive income section. Basically, the revaluation surplus will be shown net of deferred tax in the other comprehensive income. Let's take a third example. We know when we apply Ind AS 8, then there might be changes in accounting policy which are done retrospectively, or there might be, let's say, a prior period error, a correction of an error relating to the previous years rectified in the current year. Now, when you make changes in accounting policy or when there is a correction of errors, it is supposed to be with a retrospective effect. Now, once it is with a retrospective effect, in those particular cases, the entire impact is taken in terms of restating the opening balance of retained earnings. So in those cases, when you take the changes to the opening balance and retained earnings, we're going to take the associated deferred tax also directly in SOKI. What it simply means is that if the related income and expense goes in the P&L, the deferred tax goes in the P&L. If the related income and expense goes to OCI, the related deferred tax goes in OCI. If the related item of income and expense is taken in SOKI, then it is taken directly in SOKI. And another example, if you're looking in terms of business combination, that is Ind AS 103, when you look at the acquisition entry, the assets and liabilities are taken at a fair value. And these assets and liabilities which are taken at a fair value will have a carrying amount different as compared to the tax base, resulting in a deferred tax consequences. Now, that associated deferred tax will be recorded in the acquisition entry itself. So consequently, that would change the balancing figure, which is the goodwill in the acquisition entry. So we can say deferred tax can be segregated into four areas. Either it gets recorded in the P&L 1, or it gets recorded in the OCI 2, or it gets recorded in SOKI directly, that's 3, or if it relates to business combination, then it gets recorded in the acquisition entry, indirectly affecting the goodwill figure, because that is the balancing figure. Isn't that pretty interesting indeed? So this is the total 5-step models which gets completed in this video. Next video, I think we'll perhaps take a little comprehensive illustration related to deferred tax. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye and take care.